The Galactic Council, a venerable institution forged from centuries of uneasy truces and calculated diplomacy, prided itself on being the balancing force in a universe teetering between chaos and order. At its heart were the ancient species, beings like the Vernok, towering crustaceans with shells that shimmered like obsidian, the ethereal urine, composed of flowing energy and capable of thought patterns so complex they rivaled quantum computers, and the stoic Tazari, reptilian titans with an unshakable sense of tradition. The council chambers themselves, carved into the core of a rogue planet encased in layers of protective force fields and cloaked from the wider galaxy, were a testament to the sophistication of this alliance. When Admiral Zoctal, a Vernok elder with ridges along his massive claws signifying centuries of battle honors, called for an emergency session, there was immediate tension in the chamber. The holographic dais pulsed with blue light as delegates materialized from across the galaxy. No one ignored a summons from Zoctal, not when it came stamped with the crimson seal of existential threat. The room hummed with anticipation, and then, in the center of the chamber, floated a holographic projection, a barren planet from a fringe star system, mostly uncharted and unimportant until now. Sector 78K. Zoctal's deep voice reverberated, clicking in his native dialect before the translator adjusted. A skirmish broke out between a Vernok patrol and unknown aggressors. The patrol did not survive. Murmurs broke out among the delegates, but it was the Urine delegate, Elvin, who pulsed brighter in agitation. Impossible, nothing in that quadrant but feral worlds and gas giants. The next image silenced the council, a fleet unfamiliar ships of angular, utilitarian design, bristling with missile silos, kinetic railguns, and oddly primitive ballistics by galactic standards. There were no sleek plasma turrets, no energy shields glowing like the auras of council ships. Instead, these vessels bore scars, plating patched crudely, but their firepower was undeniable. These, Zoctal growled, are humans. The reaction was immediate and volatile. Some delegates recoiled, others blinked rapidly, attempting to parse the word through ancient archives. Humans were nothing more than a scientific curiosity. The species had been documented on a distant blue-green world, categorized as pre-FTL and dismissed by council records. Earth was to be observed, studied, but never engaged. The humans should still be struggling with atmospheric propulsion, hissed General Thrax of the Tazari, his sharp teeth clicking. They have no hyperdrives. Zoctal brought up footage next grainy, but clear enough. A Vernok dreadnought shattered under relentless missile salvos, debris scattered across the vacuum. No energy weapons, no superliminal trickery, just raw, devastating kinetic force. They reverse-engineered FTL tech from a derelict Sarnian frigate. Zoctal's voice was low, ominous. Crude, but functional, and now they are expanding. For centuries, the Council had treated primitive species as static footnotes, never evolving fast enough to warrant worry. Evolution, in their minds, was a glacial process spanning millennia. Yet here, in a matter of decades, humans had leaped from atmospheric flight to conquering deep space. Even more concerning, they weren't negotiating. They did not respond to hails? Asked Elvin. They responded, Zoctal said grimly. A short video played, fuzzy audio from a human captain, presumably from the largest ship in the fleet. This is Captain Ryan Calder of the United Terran Navy. Vacate this sector immediately. Noncompliance will be met with force. The arrogance was palpable, and yet the room fell into silence. Primitive species didn't threaten the Council. They begged for inclusion or were quietly assimilated. But here was humanity, issuing ultimatums. For Admiral Zoctal, this revelation was both disturbing and humiliating. The Vernok, long accustomed to military dominance, had lost an entire fleet to a species still using projectile-based weapons. The Vernok Code of Honor demanded vengeance, but the Council's balance of power demanded caution. We've underestimated them, Elvin finally said, glowing dimly. But they are still fledglings. Their technology is obsolete compared to ours. The holographic map expanded, showing additional star systems, red dots marking human outposts on barren moons, asteroids turned into makeshift fortresses, and FTL-capable dreadnoughts patrolling like predators. They are expanding at an exponential rate, Zoctal snapped. No treaties, no emissaries, only colonies and fortifications. In weeks, they've claimed sectors the Council ignored for centuries. Councillor Vieneth of the Sereti, a slithering, serpentine race known for subterfuge, offered a sinister hiss. Perhaps it is time to cull them. The chambers shifted from confusion to consensus across the stars. The Council had enforced compliance through proxy wars, engineered famines, or outright annihilation. The humans would be no different. Or so they thought. Aelvin raised a tendril. Before we enact military measures, we must know more who leads them. What drives them? Species this young should not be this aggressive. The question echoed uncomfortably. The truth was, none of them truly understood humanity. Their intelligence on humans was centuries out of date, back when humans were just warring tribes on a remote planet. Their biology is unremarkable, Vienna sneered. Soft flesh, brittle bones, short lifespans. But their minds, Zocto muttered. Their audacity. The scene shifted once more. A Council scout drone, hidden near the asteroid belt of the contested system, had captured another chilling image. Human soldiers, clad in adaptive combat suits, boarding a Tazari cruiser. No fear, no hesitation. The footage ended with a human marine planting explosives and giving a grinning thumbs up to the drone before it went dark. They boarded a Council ship. Thrax growled, rage flaring. A war crime. But Zocto knew better. This wasn't savagery. It was strategy. The humans didn't have superior technology, but they compensated with asymmetrical tactics and psychological warfare. Where Council races fought by code and tradition, humans fought dirty. Counselors, Zocto said gravely, we face an enemy who does not know fear as we understand it. Their history is filled with wars, but they view conflict as opportunity. The chamber grew colder. They all knew of species that were ruthless, but humanity's rapid rise defied logic. How had they, without the benefit of the Galactic Council's technological inheritance, become a threat so quickly? Thrax snarled, slamming a clawed hand onto the dais. They are ants. We will crush them. But Zocto remained silent, staring at the replay of the human marine's grin, the casual irreverence in the face of certain death. Perhaps ants, but these ants had teeth, and worse, they laughed while biting. Prepare for war, Zocto ordered, voice heavy. But do not expect an easy victory. As the Council disbanded, a single, chilling truth settled over the ancient races. For the first time in millennia, they were no longer the apex predators of the stars. The aftermath of the Council's disastrous ambush against the humans had sent seismic waves rippling through the heart of the Galactic Council. Where once there was quiet confidence and political harmony, now suspicion and fear festered beneath every diplomatic smile. Delegates who previously shook hands without hesitation now eyed each other warily, and factions that were once united against a common threat, the humans, began to crumble from within. Ambassador Vura of the Celauri Empire sat in the vast marble halls of the High Assembly, staring blankly at the towering hollow statue of the Galactic Council's founding members. The looming figures of long-deceased leaders, carved in immaculate detail, once stood as a symbol of enduring unity. Now, to Vura's exhausted eyes, they appeared mocking, reminders of a council that no longer existed in spirit. Whispers of treachery had surfaced in the shadows of the Senate chambers. It began with a single accusation. The Threx Dominion had allegedly withheld critical intelligence on humanity's tactical capabilities. This claim, made by the fiery representatives of the Arzoni Pact, set off a political firestorm. In closed-door sessions, angry voices clashed like dueling swords. You knew their ships had cloaking capabilities! Delegate Aarza of the Arzoni roared, his clawed hands slamming onto the obsidian table. Yet you withheld it! You let hundreds of our warships be slaughtered while you sat back and watched. The Threx representative, Counselor Vren, a reptilian with cold yellow eyes, hissed in return. We shared what was known at the time. Humanity's adaptability is beyond predictive models. They evolve strategies in mere cycles, far faster than any species we've encountered. Do not cast blame for your own incompetence. It was not the first of these confrontations, nor would it be the last. The unity that had bound the Council was unraveling like frayed silk. Meanwhile, humanity remained an enigma. Their fleets, after their victory in the Zarn Nebula, had not pursued immediate territorial conquest. Instead, they executed precise strikes against logistical hubs, severing supply lines, and sabotaging communications across entire sectors. Admiral Rowan's strategy was clear: bleed the Council dry through calculated attrition and psychological warfare. Far from the Assembly, on the Council's inner territories, panicked citizens and subordinate species whispered terrifying tales. Rumors spread of human black ops teams that infiltrated planetary governments, toppling regimes without a single open battle. Other reports spoke of planetary governors vanishing overnight, with hollow messages left behind warning: withdraw from this war, or face extinction. The psychological impact of these tactics was devastating. Systems began to defect, refusing to send additional resources or troops to the Council's efforts. Smaller polities such as the Thiel Confederation and the Hiran clans quietly pulled out of military alliances, instead declaring neutrality in the conflict. In response, the once mighty Council fleet found itself increasingly fragmented. Convoys lacked escort vessels, border outposts fell silent, and entire sectors descended into chaos. Back within the heart of Council space, Admiral Vura and her allies plotted. Though the Selari Empire remained a formidable power, even they understood the futility of standing alone against humanity's growing war machine. Vura leaned across the conference table, addressing key delegates from the Selari, Arzoni, and Kauri species. The Threx Dominion is playing both sides, she began coldly. Mark my words, they seek to preserve themselves at the expense of the Council. They're opportunists, agreed Councillor Zell of the Kauri, his voice a harsh clicking. If humans offer them a separate peace, the Threx will take it. And if they do, Vura replied, the Council collapses entirely. Silence gripped the room as grim realization set in. The humans, whether by design or consequence, had turned the Galactic Council into a nest of vipers. Each species now weighed its survival against its loyalty to the collective. Vura's personal aide, a young tactician named Ryan, whispered as he approached her side. Admiral, there's a new development. Speak. The humans have just seized control of the Alari outpost on the edge of the Liran expanse without firing a single shot. Reports indicate the garrison abandoned their positions. The implications were staggering. That outpost was crucial, a gateway to inner Council territory. How? Vura's voice was sharp. Ryan hesitated. Psychological warfare, Admiral. The garrison received intercepted human transmissions of what they did to the Orhan colonies. Vura's blood chilled. The Orhan incident was still shrouded in mystery. Reports were heavily classified, but whispers spoke of complete civilian evacuation, followed by surgically precise strikes that left critical infrastructure intact. But the ruling oligarchs eliminated some. Rumors suggested human special forces had dismantled Orthan's ruling council from within. A slow breath escaped Vura's lips. The humans don't need brute force, they're dismantling us, piece by piece, using fear. Elsewhere, the Threx Dominion was indeed exploring back-channel negotiations deep within their border territories. Emissaries were sent under the veil of secrecy. The Threx leader, Supreme Matriarch Tlan, saw the writing on the wall. Our fleets are overstretched, she confided to her inner circle. The Council fractures. Should we perish for an alliance that no longer exists? Her advisors nodded grimly. The Threx, pragmatic to the core, would seek terms before ruin found them. Yet even as secret talks with human operatives began, humanity's representatives played a long game. They did not accept peace easily, instead probing the Threx's weaknesses, leveraging promises of leniency for valuable intelligence. Meanwhile, back at the Council's main seat, the rift grew wider. Delegates began abandoning sessions entirely, with the once crowded assembly hall now echoing with the voices of only a few. Admiral Vura watched from the shadows of the balcony, her gaze hardened. This war has already been lost, she murmured to herself. The question now is, who will survive its end? Humanity had done what no species had accomplished before. They broke the unity of the most powerful alliance in the galaxy, not with overwhelming numbers, but with calculated fear and strategic brilliance. But the true horror was yet to come. Vura knew humanity hadn't yet unleashed their full potential. This war, she feared, was merely the opening act. The Galactic Council's once unified front had crumbled, leaving a vacuum of power and trust. Amidst this chaos, humanity advanced, not with overt aggression, but with a calculated silence that spoke volumes. Their fleets moved like phantoms, appearing where least expected, striking with precision, and then vanishing into the cosmic void. Admiral Vura of the Selari Empire stood aboard the bridge of her flagship. The eclipse, the vastness of space stretched before her, dotted with the distant lights of stars and the ominous shadows of derelict ships, remnants of battles lost to human strategy. "Status report," Bureau commanded, her voice steady but laced with underlying tension. "Admiral," her communications officer responded. "We've lost contact with Outpost 8 and 9, no distress signals, no signs of engagement, it's as if they simply disappeared." Viewer's jaw tightened. This was the third outpost to go dark in a fortnight. The pattern was unmistakable. Human forces were isolating and dismantling the Council's infrastructure without direct confrontation. "Initiate a full-spectrum scan," she ordered. "I want to know if there's any trace of human activity, cloaked ships, residual energy signatures, anything." As her crew scrambled to comply, Viewer couldn't shake the feeling that they were being outmaneuvered at every turn. Humanity's silence was not a sign of weakness but a testament to their strategic prowess. Within the hallowed halls of the Galactic Council, paranoia had taken root. Delegates who once debated policy and trade now whispered of spies and traitors. The Threx Dominion's secret negotiations with humanity had been exposed, leading to a cascade of accusations and broken alliances. Councillor Zell of the Curry addressed the assembly, his mandibles clicking in agitation. "The Threx have betrayed us. They sought to preserve themselves by colluding with the very enemy we stand against." Councillor Vren of the Threx rose in defense, his reptilian eyes narrowing. "We acted in the interest of survival. The Council is fractured, and humanity exploits our divisions. We sought a path to preserve our species." The chamber erupted into chaos, voices overlapping in a cacophony of blame and fear. Amidst the turmoil, a solitary figure observed in silence. Ambassador Leora of Earth. Her presence was a stark reminder of the enemy they faced, and yet, she remained an enigma, offering neither threat nor conciliation. On the fringes of Council space, humanity's true intentions began to unfold. Admiral Rowan convened a war council aboard the Horizon, Earth's flagship. "Our objective is not conquest," Rowan stated, his gaze unwavering. "We aim to dismantle the Council's ability to wage war, to force them into acknowledging our sovereignty." General Kwan, head of ground forces, nodded. "We've deployed operatives to key installations. Psychological operations are underway to erode their morale and sow discord among their ranks." Rowan's lips curved into a grim smile. "We've become the ghost in their machine. They fear what they cannot see, and that fear will be their undoing." Reports flooded into the Council of unexplained phenomena. Ships disappearing without a trace, supply lines severed, and entire colonies rendered silent. The psychological toll was immense. Soldiers hesitated, fearing unseen enemies. Commanders second-guessed every decision, haunted by the specter of human intervention. Admiral Vura received a coded transmission, a challenge from Admiral Rowan, proposing a parley at neutral coordinates. It was an audacious move, but one she couldn't ignore. In the desolate expanse of the Vorta Nebula, two flagships faced each other, the Eclipse and the Horizon. Aboard the Eclipse, Admiral Vura prepared to meet the man who had orchestrated their downfall. The holographic interface flickered to life, revealing Admiral Rowan's stern visage. "Admiral Vura," Rowan began, inclining his head slightly. "We meet at last." "Admiral Rowan," Vura replied, her tone measured. "To what do I owe this honor?" "A proposal," Rowan stated. "Cease hostilities, recognize Earth's sovereignty, and we can end this conflict without further bloodshed." Vura's eyes narrowed. "And if we refuse?" Rowan's expression hardened. "Then we will continue to dismantle the Council piece by piece. You've seen our capabilities, you know we can do it." Silence stretched between them, the weight of the decision pressing down on Vura. She knew the Council was on the brink, but pride and fear held them back. The Council convened in emergency session to deliberate Rowan's proposal. The debate was fierce, with factions divided between those advocating for peace and those demanding continued resistance. Councillor Zell slammed his appendage onto the table. "We cannot surrender to these upstarts. It would be the end of our civilization as we know it." Ambassador Leora finally spoke, her voice calm yet resonant. "Perhaps it's not the end, but a new beginning. Humanity seeks coexistence, not domination. We've shown our strength, not to conquer, but to earn our place among you." Her words hung in the air, a beacon of hope amidst the storm of fear. The delegates murmured, the seeds of doubt giving way to contemplation. After days of deliberation, The Council reached a decision they would recognize Earth's sovereignty in exchange for a mutual non-aggression pact and the establishment of diplomatic relations. The accord was signed aboard the neutral station of Pax Serra, a symbol of hope amidst a galaxy torn by war. Admiral Vura and Admiral Rowan stood side by side as the documents were finalized. "May this be the beginning of a new era," Vura said, extending her hand. Rowan clasped it firmly. "To peace and prosperity." The news of the accord spread across the galaxy, eliciting mixed reactions. Some hailed it as a triumph of diplomacy. Others saw it as a capitulation, but for the war-weary citizens of both the Council and Earth, it was a welcome respite. Humanity had secured its place among the stars, not through sheer force, but through resilience, strategy, and an unwavering resolve. The Galactic Council had learned to respect, and perhaps even fear, the tenacity of the human spirit. Ambassador Leora stood on the observation deck of the newly established Earth Embassy, gazing at the stars. The journey had been arduous, the cost high, but the outcome was a testament to humanity's enduring spirit. "We've come a long way," a voice said behind her. She turned to see Admiral Rowan approaching. "Indeed we have, but there's still much to do." Rowan nodded. "The galaxy is watching. We must show them that humanity is a force for peace as much as it is for strength." Leora smiled. "And we will together." The galaxy remained tense even after the accord between Earth and the Galactic Council was signed. Whispers of human ingenuity and psychological mastery still echoed through council chambers and military installations. Though peace was declared, deep down, many council members and their militaries remained suspicious, wary of what humanity might do next to them. The humans had not just secured their sovereignty. They had exposed the cracks in an empire that spanned millennia, and in those cracks, fear festered. On the far edges of known space, humanity quietly consolidated its gains. Colonies that once were hidden were now flourishing openly. Massive fleets were not withdrawn but repositioned defensively around these settlements. Humanity knew that peace, though written on paper, was fragile. Admiral Rowan, along with General Quan and Ambassador Leora, worked tirelessly to prepare for the unknown. They understood that while the Council had agreed to peace, there were factions that would never accept humans as equals. Secretly, humanity continued to refine its intelligence network, embedding operatives across Council space and fortifying their strategic footholds. Meanwhile, back on Pax Serra Station, the site of the historic accord, the air was thick with tension. Councillor Zell, ever the Hawk, convened a clandestine meeting of like-minded leaders who believed that the treaty had been signed under duress. "Humanity must be watched," Zell hissed to the gathered dignitaries, his eyes narrowed with suspicion. "They have disrupted the balance we so carefully maintained. If we don't act, they will rise beyond our control." The seeds of a secret resistance were sown. That night, with operatives dispatched to monitor human activity, sabotage their efforts, and if possible, incite conflict under the guise of rogue factions. Humanity's intelligence operatives, however, were already aware of these efforts. Embedded deep within Council bureaucracy, human agents fed information back to Earth's High Command. Admiral Rowan read the reports with a grim expression. "They're not ready to let this go," he muttered. "They're preparing for something." General Quan agreed. "They see us as the variable they can't predict. Fear will drive them to make reckless moves." Sure enough, only weeks later, Council-aligned mercenaries launched an unauthorized strike on a human colony in the Delta Arcturus sector. The attack was brutal, designed to provoke humanity into retaliation and paint them as aggressors. Yet, the colony's defenses, bolstered by human innovation, repelled the invaders with minimal losses. What shocked the Council more was humanity's response, not one of open war, but of quiet precision. Humanity's special operations units, using cloaked transports and advanced infiltration techniques, tracked the mercenaries back to their sponsors within days. Multiple Council outposts were silently neutralized, their leadership disappearing without a trace. No official statement was made by Earth, but the message was clear. "We know who you are, and we will act without mercy." This escalating shadow war strained the uneasy peace. The Council's official leadership scrambled to distance itself from the rogue factions while quietly supporting them behind closed doors. Ambassador Leora, ever the diplomat, addressed the Council with calm but firm words. "We have honored the accord, even as you have tested its limits, but understand this. Humanity's restraint is not weakness, we have simply chosen peace because we value life, not because we lack the will or the means to end this conflict definitively. Her words sent ripples through the council chambers. Even the most hawkish members could not dismiss the veiled warning in their hearts. They knew that humanity's psychological mastery extended beyond warfare. It touched diplomacy, espionage, and perception itself. Back on Earth, leaders debated the next move. Some factions within humanity itself called for all-out war, citing the continuous provocations, but Rowan and Leora urged patience. "We can't play into their narrative," Rowan argued. "They want us to become the monsters they fear." Instead, they launched a series of humanitarian and scientific initiatives, offering medical aid, technological advancements, and joint ventures to council worlds willing to cooperate. Slowly, cracks appeared in the councils. Solidarity as individual worlds began engaging directly with Earth, drawn to the promise of progress and security. The council's elite could only watch in frustration as humanity, once an outlier, now became a beacon of hope for disenfranchised species across the galaxy. Whispers of revolution grew in quiet corners of council space. Trade unions, planetary governors, and even some military leaders began questioning the council's grip on power. In contrast, Earth's reputation soared to many. Humans were no longer the invaders from a backwater world but the champions of change. However, the storm brewing in the shadows could not be ignored. Intelligence reports confirmed that Zell's faction was assembling a covert strike force, a coalition of council loyalists and rogue fleets, intent on staging a false flag operation to frame humanity and reignite full-scale war. When Rowan received confirmation of the plan, he faced a difficult choice. To preemptively strike would give the council the excuse they needed to break the treaty, but doing nothing could see human colonies devastated. "It's a trap either way," General Quan said bitterly. "They want us to show our hand." Rowan turned to Ambassador Leora. "Then maybe we don't play the game they expect." In the weeks that followed, Earth's agents spread disinformation, making it appear as though humanity's forces were consolidating for an offensive in an entirely different sector. Meanwhile, covert teams infiltrated the heart of Zell's faction. When the rogue strike force launched its assault, they found their own allies turning on them mid-battle, sabotaging their vessels from within. The chaos was swift, and total ships were disabled. Leadership captured, and in a final twist, all evidence of their true intentions was leaked to the wider galaxy. News channels across the council worlds exploded with reports of the conspiracy. Citizens protested in the streets, outraged that their leaders had risked another war. The council's credibility, already strained, now teetered on the edge of collapse. Humanity issued no official comment, choosing instead to let the council's internal fractures deepen. But behind closed doors, Rowan, Quan, and Leora knew they had crossed a dangerous threshold. The game was no longer about simple survival or sovereignty. Humanity had become a catalyst for change across the galaxy. Where once they were seen as the unpredictable variable, now they were the fulcrum upon which the future would pivot. As the dust settled from the failed false flag operation, both Earth and the Council stood at a crossroads. Infiltrators still lurked in the shadows, and trust remained fragile. Yet for the first time, it was not humanity that was seen as the existential threat, it was the Council's own corruption, laid bare for all to see. And so, as the stars spun silently above, the quiet war continued, not with grand battles or planetary invasions, but with whispers, alliances, and the slow reshaping of power itself. Humanity had proven it could fight with steel and fire. Now, it was winning with patience and cunning. The aftermath of the Council's failed false flag operation sent shockwaves far deeper than anyone anticipated across Council space. Revolts began to simmer beneath the surface. World after world, long subjugated by the Council's centralized authority, now questioned everything. The broadcasts revealing the conspiracy had cracked the facade of unity. And the Council's member species saw clearly for the first time how desperation had driven their leaders to reckless extremes. The trust was broken. And amid this fracture, humanity became both a symbol of defiance and a dangerous alternative. Earth's leadership, however, understood the weight of their position. While many human factions pushed for seizing the moment, pressing the advantage and toppling the Council with brute force, Admiral Rowan and Ambassador Leora remained cautious. They saw the bigger picture. Humanity could not become just another conqueror. They needed to position themselves as liberators, not oppressors. In secret meetings, humanity's most seasoned intelligence officers and military strategists devised a bold, complex strategy that would amplify the cracks within the Council while offering open arms to worlds disillusioned by their leadership. Every Council world that defected peacefully would receive humanitarian aid, security guarantees, and access to human technological advancements in return. They would become partners in a new, decentralized galactic order, one no longer controlled by a single oppressive body. While human diplomatic envoys spread this message, special operations teams continued to wage an invisible war. Black Ops units intercepted Council armaments shipments, sabotaged key military installations, and neutralized extremist leaders who plotted to reignite open hostilities. All of this was done under a veil of plausible deniability, designed to make it appear as though Council worlds were imploding under their own mismanagement. Councillor Zell, now the unofficial figurehead of the militant faction, grew increasingly paranoid with each failed plot and growing unrest across Council territories. He realized that humanity's influence extended beyond ships and soldiers. It was psychological. Humanity was winning hearts and minds while destabilizing the Council's grip with surgical precision. But Zell was not without his own countermeasures in the shadows. He made contact with warlords, pirate kings, and ancient mercenary factions long believed extinct. From these hidden alliances, a brutal insurgency began to form, a patchwork army that thrived on chaos. Zell's plan was to unleash this force across both Council and human-controlled sectors, creating a tide of violence so overwhelming that humanity would be forced into open war, destroying its carefully built image. Soon after, the first strikes began. Entire colonies, both human and Council-aligned, were hit with devastating precision. Mining stations were turned into charred husks, transport convoys vanished, and spaceports erupted in sudden, calculated explosions. Civilians, regardless of species, were the primary targets. Zell's coalition of raiders operated under no banner, making attribution impossible. News outlets labeled them the Shadow Swarm. Humanity responded not with immediate force but with calm resolve. Emergency rescue teams were dispatched to every affected region, offering aid to any survivors, human or alien alike. Mobile hospitals were set up on devastated worlds, guarded by human marines who protected both their own people and the Council's. This humanitarian effort sent shockwaves through the galaxy, as countless non-human civilians, once conditioned to fear humans, now found them to be the only force standing between them and annihilation. Ambassador Leora delivered an impassioned address broadcast across the galactic network. This terror is not of humanity's making. We stand here, not as conquerors, but as defenders of life. Every world, every species, has the right to peace and safety. We will protect those who cannot protect themselves. While the galaxy watched, some Council factions attempted to blame humanity for the Shadow Swarm, but the accusations rang hollow. Human forces were too busy saving lives and rebuilding shattered colonies. Slowly, worlds began defecting, not out of fear, but out of gratitude. Meanwhile, back in the shadows, Admiral Rowan coordinated a task force to hunt down the heart of the insurgency. Using a combination of human cyber warfare capabilities and intelligence gathered from grateful defectors, humanity's operatives tracked the Shadow Swarm to an ancient star system long hidden in the galactic core, where Zell and his patchwork fleet operated from a rogue moon base. The mission that followed was one of the most daring operations in human history. Under Rowan's command, human special forces executed a multi-pronged assault on the rogue base. The operation was swift, brutal, and precise. Saboteurs disabled the base's defenses while infiltration units hacked into communications, feeding false signals that confused the insurgent fleet as the base descended into chaos. Human marines and drop teams breached its hull, neutralizing warlords and mercenaries who had plagued the galaxy for decades. Zell, cornered and realizing the inevitability of defeat, attempted to detonate the base's core, intending to take humanity's best with him. But humanity was prepared. In a desperate final gambit, a strike team led by the legendary operative commander Isla Voss disarmed the explosives and apprehended Zell alive, delivering him into custody. The capture of Zell was a monumental blow to the remnants of the Council's old guard. News of his apprehension was broadcast across every channel in Council space. As Zell's conspiracy unraveled under interrogation, the galaxy learned the extent of the corruption and desperation that had infected the Council's leadership. The final nail in the Council's coffin was not a fleet battle, but the will of its own citizens' protests erupted on Council worlds, with millions demanding independence, justice, and a new order. Seeing the writing on the wall, many of the Council's moderate leaders began secretly negotiating with Earth. Rowan, Leora, and Quan sat together in a high-level strategy session, watching the events unfold across star charts. "We never fired the first shot," Quan remarked. "And yet the whole house is coming down." Rowan nodded grimly. "Because they were already fractured inside, we just showed them the mirror." With Zell's insurgency crippled and humanity's forces now positioned as protectors across dozens of sectors, Earth found itself at the precipice of reshaping galactic politics. But both Rowan and Leora knew the danger was far from over. Power vacuums attract chaos, and the fall of the Council would leave deep scars and unresolved tensions. As humanity prepared to take on a leadership role in this emerging new galactic order, one thing was clear: the war for survival was over. The battle for the soul of the galaxy had just begun. In the quiet after the storm, the galaxy stood in a fragile balance. The Council, once the supreme governing body feared and obeyed by hundreds of worlds, had effectively collapsed. Its core worlds were in chaos, local governments scrambling to maintain order as their populations turned against the old regime. Meanwhile, on the outer fringes of Council space, where humanity's influence now loomed large, hope flickered amidst the ruins of war. Humanity could have seized the moment and established dominance by sheer force. Their fleets were unmatched, their soldiers proven in battle, and their intelligence networks had outmaneuvered some of the most sophisticated alien powers in known space. But Admiral Rowan, Ambassador Leora, and Commander Quan understood that such a path would sow the seeds of resentment and rebellion in time. Instead, they pushed for something no one expected: cooperation. The first of many conferences was held on the neutral world of Varda Prime, a trade hub untouched by the worst of the war. Delegates from across the galaxy, including representatives from former Council races and emerging planetary governments, gathered under tight security. Humanity did not dictate terms. Instead, they proposed a radical idea: the creation of a galactic concord, an alliance of worlds built on shared governance, mutual defense, and non-interference in local cultures. The proposal was met with suspicion. Many still carried deep-rooted fears of humanity. Some smaller factions whispered that this was merely another form of human empire building, cloaked in diplomacy. Yet, the undeniable truth lay in humanity's actions over the past months. Their soldiers had bled beside alien civilians. Their medics had saved lives without asking for loyalty. Their fleets had not occupied worlds, but patrolled trade routes to protect both allies and former enemies from the Shadow Swarm remnants. Slowly, hearts and minds began to shift. Behind the scenes, Rowan's fleet remained on high alert. Though Zell's insurgency had been shattered, rogue elements still prowled the dark corners of the galaxy. Pirate bands, warlords, and extremist factions sought to exploit the power vacuum. Humanity's intelligence corps worked tirelessly, dismantling these threats before they could coalesce into something greater. At the same time, humanity quietly shared technological advancements with their new allies: not weapons, but infrastructure, fusion reactor blueprints, agricultural breakthroughs, medical innovations. The message was clear. Humanity's strength did not lie solely in its military might but in its ability to elevate others. Despite this progress, there were fractures in the tentative peace. Some Council hardliners, refusing to surrender their old power, formed splinter groups deep in uncharted sectors. They plotted, rebuilt, and schemed in exile, promising revenge. Humanity's leadership knew that these threats could take years, even decades, to fully extinguish. One evening, as Rowan stood aboard the U.S. Resolute, overlooking the fleet at Varda Prime's orbit, Ambassador Leora joined him. The stars stretched endlessly before them, dotted with human and alien ships working together to maintain order. "It's fragile," Leora said softly. Rowan nodded. "Glass always is, until you make it steel." "And how do you propose we do that?" she asked. Rowan gave a faint smile. "Trust. Earned, not demanded." In the weeks that followed, the Galactic Concord took shape. Worlds voluntarily signed on, each bringing their unique cultures, perspectives, and histories to the table. The founding charter of the Concord emphasized mutual respect, the sanctity of local governance, and a collective defense pact aimed at preventing future galactic wars. Humanity was not the supreme ruler of this new alliance but its anchor, respected, relied upon, but kept in check by a council of equals. Rowan, Leora, and Quan were appointed as Earth's permanent representatives, and under their watch, humanity continued to thread the needle between strength and humility. Yet, the road ahead remained uncertain. Far from Varda Prime, beyond known space, sensors occasionally detected faint energy signatures, flickers of technologies unknown, whispers of powers older and perhaps more dangerous than the Council or humanity. Rumors circulated of forgotten empires stirring from ancient slumbers, awakened by the sudden shift in the galaxy's balance. One such rumor reached Commander Quan's desk, an encrypted report marked urgent. It detailed the disappearance of entire scouting fleets near the galactic core, where gravitational anomalies warped space itself. There, hidden in the shadows, something stirred, something that watched as humanity and its newfound allies reshaped the galaxy. For now, though, humanity had earned a fragile peace. The war that began as a desperate struggle for survival had transformed them into leaders, protectors, and architects of a new future. But as Admiral Rowan gazed into the endless void, he knew better than to grow complacent. The galaxy, vast and mysterious, always had another storm waiting on the horizon. The question was, when it came, would humanity still stand as the beacon of hope, or would they, too, be swallowed by the darkness they had only begun to understand?